Most of the sources people know of and are familiar with, they have an opinion about, and they'll express it in a survey. One thing I talk about in the book is in the 50s, the National Election Study didn't ask about this very often because people didn't think it was an interesting topic, but once they asked about it in 1956. They asked how, and they didn't ask this general question, but they asked newspapers, do you think newspapers are fair or biased? And in 1956, conservatives had more trust that their newspapers were unbiased than liberals. Everyone had over 50% believed they were fair, and conservatives had more trust in the media than liberals. In 1964, in the first presidential election where the modern era that started more polarized, right? You had Barry Goldwater, who's the most conservative Republican candidate in a long time, running. That's when you first started getting a lot of conservative Republican criticism of the institutional press, the mainstream press. Right? There's a lot going on in the '64 campaign. Prior to that, it's hard to find very much. Now, I can't tell if that's when things started to move because there really wasn't that much polling on this then. But by the late '60s, you see this partisan divide where Republicans, conservatives already have more negative views toward the media. One thing I did in the course of this project, this was in 2006, is I conducted a survey where we had an open-ended question right after the trust in the media question. And so they asked the trust in the media question, then said, while you're being interviewed, tell me everything that came to your mind while you were answering that last question. Like, what thought considerations did you use? And they had the opportunity to say whatever they wanted. So that data, and so interestingly, a lot of people wrote a lot. A couple people, 2 or 3 people I remember wrote sort of mini essays. Most people just said a few things. People had a lot to say. One thing you found was that nobody said, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know what it means to talk about just the media or just the media as an institution.